pens for the number of repeats he's done, and the units for the row he's on.
You'd sail down the Nile, and there would be a 300-foot high statue of Susan Claudino. You'd come round the river, and then over on the other side, there'd be like the Sphinx with the head of Susie Gawley.
Yeah,
we were grunting at each other and looking hairy. Would you like to know what a Hasselhoff is?
A Hasselhoff?
Or a flipper? Calm down, dear.
Yeah, that's a bit serious, isn't it?
I feel like that Michael Winner advert. Do you want to know what a cliptastrophe is? You're going to find out later in the show. I said to Kate, all right, okay, show me how to do it. So she goes, all right, here we go. I tried it once, it's like, forget that. Forget the 200
I
approach.
would. Welcome to episode 94.
Was I controlling the tempo there, or
You
were
were.
Was
you
I?
started to go quicker.
Sorry.
I was like,
There was like a draw towards the 94.
nice.
See, I like it. We are called the Bakery Bears for a reason, because around this time, well, what do bears do in the winter?
hibernate.
They do.
Wouldn't that be lovely?
Well, we
All
actually
cosied up in a little cave
absolutely.
and just sleep for the entire horrible winter weather.
But we sort of have been doing that. We've been all cozied up in our
That's
little
true.
cave,
Yeah, that's
sleeping
true.
for the winter. But it's about this time of year when you always know when it's time to wake up, because Kay starts to get itchy feet.
What does that mean?
Or do you know? I think it might be time for us to do a new adventure. That's what you do.
I do. That's true.
She does it
I
every
just
year.
get that feeling.
Not just bears coming out of hibernation, but also baking. When we started the show, a big part of the Bakery Bears was indeed baking. And I think you should stick around till the end of the show,
Indeed.
because we might have something to tell you about that. And we've already mentioned the new adventures.
Yeah.
Kay's her itchy feet have arrived, and so filming commenced on the new season of the new adventures of the Bakery Bears. And Kay said to me, people would love to see a little bit of a sneak peek on what's in store this season. And I said, of course they wouldn't.
You
Said,
did not.
I did. I said,
that.
there's no chance that anyone would be bothered on seeing. You're not bothered, are you? Do you think they're bothered, Kay?
Yes, I think they would love to see
Would
a
you?
little sneak peek. Don't we
Would you love
always
to
love
see
to see a
something?
sneak peek?
Well, in that case, I think you might like to take a little look at this. You know the deal, folks. Let's go.
Welcome to a brand new season of New Adventures.
And over the next 18 months, we're going to take you to some of the most exciting destinations that we've ever visited. From the Allies' preparations for D-Day to the magical Lowther Castle. We visit the manor which hosted Henry VIII in his famous progress in 1541. And so much more.
This season's adventures span a stunning 1,000 years of history.
And they pick up on some of the most important and life-changing moments in the story of our civilization.
Enough talk, let's get on with the series.
Yes, let's do it. These are the new adventures of the Bakery Bears. Yes, the new adventures of the Bakery Bears is back with our biggest season ever. Last year was when we started the new adventures, and it came off the back of the downtime that was forced on us after our well, it felt like that, didn't it? You know, given what you went through as well. After my operation. So we didn't have as much thinking time and planning time. This season, for the first time ever, the episodes really link. And as Kay's just said to you there in that little trailer, we're going to cover 1,000 years of history. And it's really going to start at the beginning and then run right through to the end. So we start next episode
Wow.
with Clifford's Tower revealed. And we end...
That's cool. It's quite scary up there. Has anybody ever been up Clifford's Tower?
I'm sure someone will have been.
It's quite high.
And we finish 1,000 years later with the countdown to D-Day, which I think is particularly appropriate, actually, given the great, so I'm told, the great Gary Oldman, Winston Churchill film,
Yeah, I want to see that.
which came out, didn't it, quite recently?
Yeah, it's not out to stream
No,
yet.
not yet,
so.
not yet. It's supposed to be really
Oh,
good.
but it's nearly March, and
it
in
fine?
March you can get the DVD for Murder on the Orient Express. I'm so excited.
There is a lot to do today because the New Adventures is starting next episode, and because something else, tune in later on in the show,
yes,
is
very
starting
exciting.
the episode after. We have some doors to close. For example, we need to do our very last Beyond the World Food Aisle. It's a segment we started at the beginning of the winter. Then it's run all the way through the winter with us. We started off going down the World Food Aisle, of course, in our supermarket, but then we've ended up with some of the most amazing food that we've ever seen. We've tried the American MREs.
Yeah.
We've tried, so that's of course the ration packs for American soldiers. We've tried the same for the British soldiers. And now, today, we get to try the Australian equivalent.
Very excited. It's still in its sealed package.
It is extremely exciting, and thank you so much to the person who sent it. You know who you are. Within this package is a device known as an FRED. I'm guessing it's called a Fred.
A Fred.
And Kay, let me tell you, I did a bit of research into this, and I got sucked down a wormhole so deep, I jest you not.
Yeah, they changed the acronym, I think, don't
No,
they?
no. You're not even going to believe the road I ended up going down. Researching today's Beyond the World Food Aisle took me into the lingo that cyclists use.
Right.
And I found, and I'm going to link it in the show notes below so you can go take a look at this. It's one of the funniest things I've read in a long time. A whole page, I mean, it's page after page actually, of words that serious cyclists use.
Oh, right, okay.
And we'll go through some of those later
gonna
on
be
in
hilarious.
the show. It really is hilarious.
We love a serious cyclist, don't we?
Would you like to know what a Hasselhoff is?
A Hasselhoff.
Or a flipper? Do you want to know what a cliptastrophe is? You're going to find out later in the show. We launched at the end of the last show a lovely competition for the next Spring Into Wool show.
Oh, yes.
And that's live and it's in our Ravelry group. Anyone can enter.
Yeah, we've got a few entries. There's not many, to be fair. So if you are able...
What's the question?
Tell me your favourite thing about wool. You know, you stand a really good chance of winning. And I know a lot of you are in, obviously, the US and other countries, so it rules you out. But
so
if you're able to go...
Yes, we don't know when, but we will be there too.
We will be there. It's on a Saturday and a Sunday.
So we've got no idea when we'll be there.
I'm not sure yet,
but we will be
one
there.
Of the days, yeah.
And we will be filming whilst we're there.
Yeah.
So if you do happen to go and you see us and we're filming, come over and talk to us.
Please do.
Because we'll want to talk to you.
Yes.
Because we're doing something specific with the filming. So head over to the Ravelry group.
Yes.
And anyone can enter that. And it is, of course, the 7th and 8th of April.
Yeah.
The tickets are weekend tickets.
Yeah.
So if you win in the draw...
You could go either day or both days.
Yeah. Or book the weekend.
Yeah.
Go the whole time.
Dan Jones.
Yes.
What's on your knitting?
Well, I will show you.
I
Because
can carry on knitting.
you can indeed. I didn't show you last time. And I made an awful lot of progress. Take a look at this. Oh, yes.
Ooh, the colour is perfect on the screen.
So much progress, in fact,
That is exactly the colour.
that I need another ball.
You do?
Yes. Look at that.
Wow.
This is the Samantha. That sounds funny saying that.
I know. It is strange when they've got people names, isn't it?
Sounds like I'm introducing someone in a derogatory way.
Yeah.
This is the Samantha. This is the K. Yes, it's the Samantha. It's by Amy Miller. The pattern
it's lovely.
is absolutely brilliant. It's concise and perfect and lovely. So
Let's see,
I
let's
can
see.
just get knitting. And that's what you want in a pattern,
Maybe
isn't
you
it?
could finish it for April and then you could wear it. Ha ha!
No, it's unlikely to happen.
Oh, it was, it was a joke.
I did not knit on that very much in between
Ooh,
episode 93 and
lovely.
92 because I was showing other things.
Right.
So I've just picked this up again and I've just made, a real big chunk. I'm about
It's
to
lovely.
get to my
I love
final...
this super tight little twisted cable here.
Yes.
It's so cute.
I'm about to get to my final decrease before I knit for a couple of inches.
It's
I don't
so-
think it's very far. And then I start the increases.
Right.
I don't really understand this shaping business.
Well, women have a shape.
I realise that.
They're not straight up and down.
I realise
They go in and then go back out again.
I get that.
So you're going in at the moment, and
Yes.
then you go straight for a bit, and then you go back out again.
I get all that. I just don't get the geography of it.
I would say, do you want me to show you?
No,
But
it just feels... I understand that. It'll all come out in the wash, I'm sure. It just doesn't feel like I'm doing them in the right places, even though I am.
and this is the Drops Alaska. Why have you got a Malabrigo tag in there?
Because I was knitting with that.
Were you?
Probably the last project that was in here.
Malabrigo worsted.
Oh, you gave me some and I nearly knit it with that, didn't I? Or something.
Oh, right, okay. So
then
it's
we
Drops
moved off it.
Alaska, and it's colour 40, which I think was pink grey, something like that, but colour 40. And it's just lovely. I feel like this is going to be a jumper that will last forever.
I hope so.
Do you know, because the yarn is so... It just feels like a really nice yarn. It's not... I mean, some people might say it's slightly rustic, but it's absolutely, it's absolutely fine. I wouldn't have a problem at all. Yeah, I don't think it'll pill, because it's not a super, super, super soft.
With my hands, we'd know if it was going to pill.
Yeah, and there's no sign of it whatsoever.
No.
It's just a lovely, lovely yarn. It really is. It's nice to knit with as well.
What I'm loving about knitting, and it's lovely that you've got this on today. What I'm loving
My
about
Irish coffee, thought I'd give it a little outie.
what I'm loving about knitting this over knitting this has got more rhythm.
Right.
So, when you get to this section, there's a certain rhythm to the way that the cables are going on that just flows, and it makes it a real joy to knit. This didn't. I love knitting this, but it didn't have so much of a rhythm. Every line of the repeat, I had to concentrate on.
Right.
And also as well, what was frustrating was for a section, you were just knitting.
Yeah.
And on here, that never
You're
really
always doing
happens.
something.
Yeah. So it just keeps you really engaged. And that is just great.
It's lovely. It's a very heathered colour, this as well. It's beautiful. There's lots of pink tones in it. It's such a gorgeous colour, and I can't wait to have it. I think it's just going to be beautiful. And such a lovely colour to wear in the winter, when everything's dark and depressing and the nights are dark, and I think it'll just be gorgeous to wear.
It's the perfect project, and I'm most happily knitting away on this with my interesting
Wooden.
that for this is wood all the way.
And they're not damaged, you're all right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe it's the yarn.
Well, I think my gauge is loosening a bit,
I think your gauge is loosening a bit as well. I've thought that lately, which is not a bad thing.
and I think that is stemming from the amount of socks, even though I know it's not that many. But I've knit about 7 socks this year, and I've knit 2 in my whole knitting career before that, or 3.
You've knit 7 socks already this year.
I have finished 5 pairs, and I have 3 on the needles.
Since January?
No.
You said this year.
In the year of the challenge.
Oh, right, okay.
Yes.
Right.
So over the last 12 months, I have knit 5 pairs of socks, and I've got 3 on the
That's
needles.
not
So
bad
that's 8.
going. I mean, that's not bad going,
Well, that's
really.
fast for me.
Oh, is it?
And
Really?
what that's done is, because I've been knitting on DPNs, I think that affects, I think definitely Magic Loop, circular,
Yeah.
you can knit tighter than you can on DPNs.
Oh, well, I always found the opposite, actually.
I
Isn't
don't
that
find my
funny?
gauge is as tight on DPNs, I don't think.
Right.
And I think that's now come across generally.
Right.
But also, I'll talk about this when I show you the project. I do think that the colour work, I know I've only been doing it a short amount of time, but I think because I'm adjusting my gauge for that,
For the colour work, yeah.
I think that that's also affecting other things too.
Yeah.
I think it's time that we found out. Okay, Jones, what's on your needles?
Oh, well, I'm knitting something lovely, which is always nice. I wanted to get on with my Mittmas mission, do you know, for this year. I mean, we're well into February, and I have knit a pair of mitts, but it's not one that I was going to give away. They were the P.O.P mitts. So I thought, right, I've got to start on this. And
Well, I think you maybe did think you were going to give them away, but then they were
did.
stolen by rain.
I looked around for a pattern, and I kind of wanted to use a chunky yarn because I thought they will knit up quick. It's nice and warm for mittens. And I had in my stash quite a lot of Stylecraft Special chunky. I bought this to make a blanket at some point, a crocheted blanket, and then realised that I couldn't crochet because it seems to hurt my wrist at the moment. So I've had this massive bag of chunky yarn, acrylic chunky yarn in my stash for ages. I thought, and I knit some socks out of it at Christmas, didn't I?
Yeah.
The snowfall socks, and they worked out brilliantly well, you know, and it's acrylic, it'll last, well, forever, won't it, really? So I thought I could use some of this chunky yarn because it's perfect for gifts. It's a wash, you know, throw them in the washer, it doesn't matter, people can do whatever they want with them, and there's no worry, you know, that they're going to damage them at all. So I thought I'll use this, and I pulled one out. It's silver is the colourway. So if you've never used it, it's Stylecraft Special Chunky. It's the same yarn as their Special DK, but just in a chunky weight, and you get 157 yards, 144 metres that is, for 100 grams. It's a chunky, it definitely is a chunky, but I've seen yarns that are much thicker that are also classed as a chunky, that might be more like 100 metres rather than 144 metres. And I think it's just one of these things where there is quite a difference between chunky yarns, I feel. And it's kind of like that with DK as well sometimes, I think. It's a funny thing. But anyway, I'm using this. And I found this pattern, and I love this pattern. I can't tell you how brilliant it is. Well, I can tell you because I will. It's called the Cinder Smoke Mittens. But that's the pattern. It's a paid for pattern on Ravelry, but it's well worth the money. It's a brilliant pattern. I've almost finished one mitten, and I knit this in 2 evenings. This one mitten, and then I cast on the other one, and Dan says, stop, you'll finish those, and you wanted to have them on the needles to show rather than finished. I said, no, I'm going to stop now. So I've done one apart from the thumb, and it's just the cutest.
Very nice.
Isn't it sweet? Look at this, look. It's double moss stitch. I seem to have this addiction at the moment to double moss stitch, don't I? Double moss stitch on Dan's vest. But it's not double moss stitch on both sides. So it's lovely and squishy, but then it's got this brilliant thing down the side where the slip stitches, can you see down there? And then the slip stitches run in to the decreases on the top here. And it's on the other side. I think it's just brilliant. And on the other side, what they do, I'll see if I can show you. Can you see they run either side of the thumb gusset and then over the top of the thumb gusset, and then they carry on. I think that's just brilliant. And such a quick knit, you know, I knit them exactly to pattern, apart from I made the cuff a little bit longer, about 3 rows, I think, because I just wanted it to come down the arm a little bit more, and I think that's a lovely length. It goes underneath your coat and stops any drafts. So it's just lovely, and the pattern calls for 6mm needles, which I did use for the body of the mitten, but I made a slight mistake in that she tells you to cast on using a tubular cast on. I didn't do that, I just did a long tail. For that, she says to use 4.5mm. Well, I misread that, and I used 4.5mm for the whole cuff, which is quite small really for chunky, but actually it worked out brilliantly well, and it means your cuff is nice and snug. So I'm going to do that. I've done that on the second one, and I'm going to do that as well for other pairs that I knit because I just like the way it worked out. So yeah, 2 evenings, and I had this mitten almost finished. I just need to go back and do the thumbs, which is my least favourite bit actually. I think it's probably everybody's least favourite bit, but it will literally take me 20 minutes, I bet you, to do the thumb because it's just such chunky yarn. So this is the silver, and I've also got a dark grey, I've got a teal blue, and a cream. So it's all kind of neutral colours, which will be brilliant. I can easily get one pair of mittens out of one ball. I'll have a little bit left over, I'm sure. Well, probably quite a bit left over actually. So I've cast on the second one. So I've got almost a full cuff. And I'm using DPNs. I haven't used DPNs for ages because I've been having this wrist pain when I use DPNs, but I thought I'd give it a go with this because these are much thicker and I've been absolutely fine. So maybe I'll try socks again with DPNs, but it could be that there's the fine needles because you hold them in a different way, don't you, when it's a thinner needle. I feel like I maybe grip them a bit tighter, I don't know. So I'm using DPNs, Knit Pro Symphonies, absolutely lovely. And the 6mm, I actually had some of these, amazingly. I had 6mm in, I had no idea why. But they're brilliantly pointy, you know, for a thick needle. And lovely, really lovely to use. I do like the Symphony needles, the wooden ones. I've been using the wooden needles a lot lately, and I do really like those. So I will have those finished really in no time, and I'm going to knit loads of these. And I knit it exactly, the pattern's great. I really, really liked the pattern because it's just got, you know, round 1, round 2, round 3, round 4, and it just goes through like that, and you just work your way through the rows, and when you've worked your way through all the rows, you're finished. I like that sort of pattern where you don't have to go up there to look for something and then go back down there to look at something. I like the way it was laid out, and I just absolutely love the slip stitches down the side. I think it's just brilliant, and it makes the mitten look kind of thicker, do you know, because you've got this sort of flat side here and here, and it looks really professional. I think if you saw these in a shop, you would be very happy to buy them.
As Kay was talking about the DPNs, I thought that I would just show you how far I got on my fingering weight socks.
Oh,
Look at that.
look at that.
I have knit the heel flap, and for those of you who joined me on Tuesday for the second part of, now it's not my DPN tutorial, I'm merely hosting Kay's DPN tutorial. And it was intense because the size of the DPNs is way smaller than I've ever experienced.
Yeah.
And because of that, when you first start knitting a heel flap and you've got all this up here, it really does take some dexterity to get that then going.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad I did persevere and sit through it, because once you get in the groove, it's better to, because it takes a moment or two, or longer than a moment or two, to get back in the groove, doesn't it, the next time you pick it up. So by just cracking on and getting it done, it was a really intense 2.5 hours, and I did feel really sleepy at the end of it.
There was a lot of concentrating going on, I could tell.
But I got them finished. And
The heel flap
yes,
finished.
yeah, not the socks. Although I'm not bothered. I'm not complaining. This is, as you all know, a brilliant
They
pattern.
look lovely.
It's the Hermione's Everyday Socks, and it's written superbly.
It is.
I can't tell you how much joy a well-written pattern brings me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you know
Because
what?
we've all had frustrating ones.
Yeah, I've had about 10. We've all had that moment where you feel that connection with the pattern. And do you know what? Secretly, I think it's not a connection with the pattern, it's a connection with the person. It's a connection with the teacher. It's Yarn is by Nicole Jimenez. Really,
It's gorgeous sock yarn.
an enjoyable,
It really is.
a thoroughly enjoyable project. And I'm shocked that I'm saying that, because I really was feeling very, very anti-socks. And so, you know, to come back round so fully, and now to be feeling that I will always have one pair of socks on the go. And it should
Really?
all, yeah, because
Oh.
to lose those skills would be idiotic. But by having that additional dexterity that you get through working with smaller needles and thinner yarn, that makes it so much easier for me to then, you know, pick up the Samantha and knit that, or pick up a colorwork project, which I'm now doing, and knit that. By taking away the challenges, which previously used to be the sort of zenith of my issues, which was, you know, manipulating the yarn and the needles, to then drop down a size, it just ramps up your ability so much. So I'm really appreciating that. But fingering weight socks to me just look more like the socks that I aspire to knit. DK weight and
You are knitting it.
I know. DK weight and above look like the type of socks that I think I can knit. Do you know what I'm saying?
You kind of, yeah.
Yeah. So
It's like a proper sock.
yeah, it just feels, and you could do it too. You could if you want to, and I would say it is definitely worth doing. And look at the eye.
I have partridge heel. That looks
It looks
lovely.
lovely. You can't beat an eye partridge seal. Now,
It's really nice.
DPNs and everything I've just said. Interesting little point. I still have 2 other pairs of socks on the go. I've got Stree on the go, and I've got Checked and Squared on the go. And I might show you them next time. If you're good. No. I'll show you them next time.
Will you show them me?
Yes. And I've mostly been knitting on this quite a lot. And I went and picked up the Checked and Squared. I'm knitting on the Checked and Squared. And I'm like, I'm using the wrong needles. I've picked up
big.
really thick ones. Oh, now I'm thinking I've totally messed up. And
But they're only a size bigger.
I know. And that just shows you how unbelievable the effect has been on my overall dexterity, because suddenly, and you said the same about those other ones, which are tree trunks, it felt, when I went from this to the size above, it was like knitting with great big rope yarn and big tree trunks.
Yeah, that's what I said about it, because when you go from knitting the 6mm mittens to a pair of socks, it's like, oh, this feels weird.
And that's a really good thing, isn't it? Because if they feel big, it means you've got control of them. If they feel small and that means you've not got control of them. So, that's been such a positive. And it was just really funny, for me to sit there and think, oh, these feel big. What? I wasn't saying that 5 months ago. So yes, there is the lovely Hermione's everyday sock, and I'll be back next Tuesday with the next tutorial where we'll be turning the heel. Yippee!
Lovely.
Yes. I'm slightly concerned about bringing this subject up again.
Oh, no!
But I just wanted to say that I blew Kay's mind the other day, because look at this.
It started confusing me.
84. No, just let me say this first, and then you can say. Last episode, we obviously spoke at length about, what are these called again?
It's a row counter
Thank you.
or a clicker. We call it a clicker. I'm sure everybody else does.
And look at my clicker. So I'm knitting a pair of socks, and look, it says 84 on there. Now, how could it possibly say 84 on there? Do you remember, Kay?
Yes.
Tell everyone what I've been doing.
He's using the tens for the number of repeats he's done, and the units for the row he's on. What? So it says 84. So he's on row 4 of the 4-row repeat, and he's done 8 repeats. It's a bit. You're using it a bit like a circuit counter, aren't you?
Now, let me tell you, I was just messing around last time. I was certainly not trying to tell anyone how to use the row counter. All I've done is I've developed a way of making it work for me.
Well, whatever works for you is fine, isn't it?
And the funny thing is,
but you're wrong.
what's happened to you? Well,
It's made me confused. I now have to think. I was using my row counter the other day, and I'm like, what row is it on? And I'm like, oh, it's made me confused. I've never had an issue before, and now I have to think about it.
My brainwaves
I'm
are
not
corrupting
happy.
you. Well, you could just change to the way I use them.
Oh, as if the very notion.
The very notion. What else
Anyway.
is on your needles?
Well, as I was saying, this is something that I've resisted casting on for quite a few months, because I didn't have a
Because you're an idiot.
Well, no, it's because I'd already knit one, and there was no actual reason apart from I wanted to do it, and that isn't normally enough of a reason.
What?
Yeah,
Precisely.
I know.
Is there
I
a
know.
reason to cast on anything?
Yeah, I know, and that should always be the reason that you cast something on, shouldn't it? But usually I'm thinking,
I want to knit that, so I'd better not cast it on.
you know, like Dan, I'll do Dan another pair of socks. He loves his socks, or Brian, he wants this, or it's always that kind of thinking. But this one day, I think it was last week, or last weekend it might have been, I just said, do you know what, I'm going to go and cast that on. And it's another Bits and Bobs blanket. But what I decided I'm doing this time is I'm using all of my hand-dyed yarns in it, which I think would be really fun, and it's a nice thing to look at, and, you know, a nice little sort of catalogue of all the different colours. And it won't have all of the colours that I've ever done in it, because I don't keep a lot of the yarn that I dye. I very rarely really keep a skein of each of the colours, but I can always dye up a colour if I particularly want one. So I needed a background colour, and for my first Bits and Bobs, the one that's in the pattern, I used 4 different background colours. But for this one, I think I'm just going to maintain the same colour all the way through. So I had to decide what colour I wanted to dye up. And at first I was just going to go for like a silver grey, and then I was going to do a pink, and I'm thinking, well, I've done those already. There's a pink and a pale grey in my other one. So I went for a colour that's kind of not normally a colour I would gravitate towards, but actually I love how it's looking. And I dyed up this kind of soft, creamy, buttery lemon. It's not quite as bright as that actually, as it's showing on the screen. But it's just a really pretty soft lemon, and I thought this would be a good sort of foil background for all of the other colours. Because I think this blanket, although you could use any colour for the background, I think it is most striking when you use either a pale colour or a very dark colour, because then all the bits and bobs of colours that you use can really stand out against that background colour. So this is the colour that I'm using, and I just dyed up a couple of skeins just to get me going. And this is a BFL nylon. So that's the background colour I'm using. And I'm keeping my yarn in this cute little, oh look, it's my little Poirot pouch. This was sent to me from a lovely friend. She saw it and thought I'd love it, and I absolutely love it. She's totally got my number. It's Mr. Poirot, and it's got poppers. So I think it's sold as like a yarn bowl, and what I've been doing is I've got my main yarn coming out of that side, and you put the popper, and then the other one comes out of the other side and you do the popper, and then they're completely separate and they don't get tangled. Brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. So I love this little thing. It's perfect. So I'll show you my progress. It looks totally different to my first one, which I really like. And I think that's down to the background colour mainly. It's really, really lovely. And I started off with, this was the dark side and the light, which looks completely different. It looks the sort of greeny colour because of the lemon mixing with the grey. And then this one is Sugar Plum Fairy, which I love. And then these 2 little skinny stripes. At Christmas, do you know, I did a few Advent mini sets at Christmas, and when I wound up they were in 10 grams. In all of the skeins, they were always a little bit heavy. So I had from 3 grams up to 5 grams in each colour left over. So I kept those for myself. So that's all of the colourways that I dyed up for the Advent calendar. That's all the names, although I can't place all 24 to each song now. It was all Christmas songs. But I'm putting those in, which is really fun. I just had a tiny, tiny bit of that blue. I think there was like 2 or 3 grams, but I put it in and you can see it, and you know, that's brilliant. And then at the moment, I'm knitting in a mermaid's tail, which is this lovely, yes, which is this lovely, it's soft blues and lilacs and pinks. It's really, really pretty. I've just got that much left. So I will probably just keep going until that's gone now, I think, and have a nice chunk of it. So I'm knitting it exactly to my pattern, no variations, because I love my first one so much that I had no reason to, make it smaller or bigger or anything. And I'm using Knit Picks Sunstruck 4mm, and I was using these because I couldn't find any symphonies when I cast it on. I think they're all being used, the 4mm, on other things. So I thought, right, I'll start with this and then I'll order a fixed 4mm symphony, which I did, but one of the tips is damaged, and I've had this a couple of times actually, not with symphonies. This is the first time it's happened with symphonies, but there's a little chip on the very tip, and you can't even really see it, you know, to the naked eye, but it catches and it's pulling out little fibres of the yarn each time I was using it. So I need to send that one back and get a replacement. But to be fair, these are fine. The Sunstruck are absolutely fine. I'll probably just carry on with these. I'm just knitting a few rows in bed at night, and it's just, you know, it's such a rhythmic thing. And there've been quite a few people that have been putting up their progress of their bits and bobs on Instagram and saying how much they love knitting it, and it's really addictive and they just really love it. And I was so pleased, because you do wonder when you put out a pattern, you know, that you really love, and I really, really love this pattern. Am I the only one that's gonna feel that way? And luckily I'm not. There are lots of you who are really, really enjoying it. So that's just so thrilling, as you know, as a designer, to see that.
Look at this. It's the Journeyman hat, and I'm really enjoying knitting this. It's really easy. It's a really straightforward knit, but it's the first hat in a long time that makes me want to wear it. I mean, I really like that. I really like the effect.
It's lovely. I haven't seen this actually.
No.
It's lovely. It's really nice. I can see you wearing it, definitely.
And you know, the effect changes as you work up the hat. You know, you've got some. Would you call it a chevron or a diamond? Or
It's like a diamond, isn't it?
Yeah, going in different directions and things, and then I think it looks like roads with things going past, because it's done by the amazing Benjamin Crudwig, and he designed this after being inspired by our adventures, which, as you now know, return next episode.
Yay!
So I thought it would be particularly appropriate. I won't get this done because we've already started filming a little bit for that episode, but maybe if we aim for the episode after that.
To have that finished?
Yes.
Cool.
Yes, so it's just the most lovely yarn.
It's lovely. Knit Picks.
Yeah.
City Tweed Arrow.
That's it, yeah. It works really brilliantly for this pattern. I think any other type of pattern, you know, I think a variegated wouldn't work at all.
No.
I think, you know, you want a fairly
solid or tonal, or tweed in this case. Yeah, you don't want a variegated, you wouldn't see the lovely texture.
No. And I'm loving, we've resolved
Yes.
the pointy needle problem, and we've resolved it by getting some addies.
Addies.
Wow.
Yeah, and they're not, anybody who uses addies will know it's a nice rounded tip, but it's quite blunt. So you're loving them, aren't you?
Yeah, I suppose you'd have to be careful. I bet you some yarns might struggle with these needle tips, do you think?
Well, it's not so much the yarn, I think it's the type of stitch. I mean, they wouldn't be ideal for doing things like increases, you know, where you've got to scoop the yarn up and go into the back and things like that. A pointy needle's better, but yeah, for splitty yarns as well, more blunt needles are better. You don't split your yarn as much with a blunter needle tip.
But, you know, it really has totally resolved that problem that I was having, which was, you know, making me not knit on it quite so much as I perhaps would have wanted to. And actually, I think on that little note, I should just, as at the bottom of there, we have the most gorgeous twisted rib. Later on in this show, there will be more 7 Wonders of Knitting.
Yes.
And I can announce officially, thank you to the hundreds of people who voted. And I can announce officially that it was a landslide. Yes, we did get a few votes. You lovely twisted rib people. Well, twisted stitch people, of course. But the winner was circular needles. So circular needles become the first of our 7 Wonders of the World.
I think it was a bit unfair, wasn't it? I mean, we'll talk about...
It was. We'll talk about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about it later on, yeah.
But I thought, as I was literally holding up Twisted Stitches, that I should tell you now that Twisted Stitches did not make it. Circular needles.
You sounded a bit drunk then. Twisted Stitches
did not make it, but circular needles
not been
most
drunk for
certainly.
many years.
No, thank you very much. I don't need to be. I'm drunk on life.
Oh gosh, honestly.
It's true.
Don't you want to punch him in the face when he says things like that?
Great pattern, lovely rib, and I'll get on with the knitting.
It's lovely. Very
What
soft.
else is on your needles?
Right. Now, this is a pattern, a new design of mine, and you could well have seen this because there is a pattern page up on Ravelry. I did originally, well, no, that's not true. When I first designed these, I did intend for it to be one of the Platinum Collection patterns, But then as I was knitting it, I thought, oh no, maybe I'll put it out as just a general pattern. But then when I finished it and it's gone through testing, I'm now going back to using it as a platinum pattern. So these socks will be the June pattern in my platinum collection. I've knit one pair and I'm actually knitting a second pair, so that's why it's on my needles. This is also in Nicole C. Mendez's yarn, and I've got a few skeins of Nicole's in my stash and I'd never knit with it and I really wanted to.
She was jealous of me.
I knit these, and it's what then made, I've since ordered another skein from her actually. I got Shrieking Shack. I always want to say Shrieking Shrack. I got Shrieking Shack to knit Bryony socks, and I got that recently. It's such a fantastic sock yarn, honestly, I can't even tell you. It's her soft sock base. She does a few different bases. The one I've been using is Soft Sock, which is an 80-20. Get 400 metres for 100 grams, and the colour I used was Little Red Riding Hood. And then I just used Reggio White 4-ply for the cuffs, heels and toes. So if you've not tried Nicole's yarn, it's fantastic. And here are the socks. Can you see there's a little texture pattern? And this happens every time you change colour. There's a little 2-row pattern that you work at each colour change. And then I've done a short row heel. And the toe, I've now called the umbrella toe because I think it looks exactly like a little umbrella. The toe, the heel it's a short row heel, and I used wraps and turns. And as you can see, it's garter stitch. I've actually amended it a tiny bit in the pattern so it's a little bit deeper, the heel, just from feedback from the testers. I tried lots and lots of short row heels, and I know the German short row heel is very popular right now, and I have worked German short rows, and I've done the Fish Lips Kiss heel, and I tried lots and lots and lots of things. But for this one I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go back to kind of the very basics, and I just did a basic short row heel using wraps and turns, but because it's in garter stitch, you don't have to pick up your wraps. They're all disguised, and actually not picking up your wraps means that I closed the gap in a particular way here. You can see there's really no hole, and I've done this a few times now and I've not had any issues with getting holes here. I've sort of like worked out a technique of using the wraps to close the hole, which I thought, it worked really well for me, and it seems to have worked well for the testers too. So that's the pair that I knit, that I took photos for the pattern, and I really, really enjoyed knitting them. And like I said, the yarn is just lovely. It washed up so nice, not a single speck of dye in the water. Especially, when you've got reds and blues, that's always a worry, and this was brilliant. And I just love the colours. It's so vibrant and just happy sort of colours. So I wanted to cast on another pair, and for this I wanted to use a more kind of commercial, well, it is a commercial yarn, and I've used Knit Picks Felici. And historically I've only ever knit one pair of Felici socks, and it was in the rainbow colourway. I knit them for Bryony when she was little. And I didn't like the yarn because there was lots of colour bleeding from one section into another. I seem to remember it was red. I'd got red specks like running through, and that really bugged me. I didn't like that at all. But I had this in my stash, and it was a gift from somebody ages ago. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to use it because I know a lot of people love Felici. A lot of people have got it in their stash. And do you know what? I enjoyed it. And I haven't had a problem with any, maybe I've just been lucky with this one, but you can see the colours are all clean. There's no bleeding at all. And I think it looks really, really nice. And obviously the pattern here at repeat isn't as frequent because these stripes are much wider than on the Nicole C. Mendez. And I used Drops Fable for the cuffs, heels and toes. Can't remember the colourway, but it's just this lovely green, which I thought went really nicely with the blues. This Felici colourway is not one that's available anymore because they go out, don't they, in and out all the time. But it was called Beyond the Wall. I don't know if that's any reference to anything. Can't think that it's any reference to anything. So that's one of them completed, and then I'm knitting the second. So I've just finished the heel, and I'm now ready just to close the gap and carry on knitting. I will say about short row heels, you know, they are very, very convenient. I think it's a lovely, simple way of knitting a sock, and I feel that if you were travelling or on holiday, or, you know, in any sort of situation where you didn't really want to have to start thinking about heel flap and gusset, I can understand why people knit them, you know, very frequently. It's a very simple thing to knit, and I really enjoyed knitting this one, actually. I really enjoyed it. So these are called the dandelion socks. I don't think I said that. Called the dandelion socks for two reasons. One, because if I hold this close, can you see the little stitch pattern that you work? When you look at it closely, I think it looks like the top of a dandelion clock. And then also, I thought the toe decreases, even though I've called this the umbrella toe, I think the toe decreases also. If you hold it that way up, imagine a stalk coming out, I think it looks like a dandelion clock. So these are the dandelion socks. And like I say, it'll be a pattern that will be part of my platinum collection.
Look at my colour work.
Oh, I haven't seen it for ages.
Goodness me. It's the split back snowflake hat.
I need to look at it.
And it's obviously stranded knitting. Is that right?
It's stranded colourwork. It's not Fair Isle. I know a lot of people call anything that's two colours Fair Isle. I believe that Fair Isle, true Fair Isle, is where you've got more than two colours going on.
So it's my first attempt at colour work, and I'm really, really, really enjoying it. And I can tell you why I'm really enjoying it. It's because the techniques are unbelievably similar to double knitting. So I'm picking up on things which I've learnt in my double knitting journey, and I'm now being able to apply those skills to a more mass market product. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's making, you know, all the sort of effort of being able to double knit to a reasonable standard, it's making it so much worthwhile. And that's the best thing, isn't it, in life? If you've learnt to do something and then you can apply those skills in another setting that you didn't expect, it's just great. It's hard, so it's a whole new learning curve, but I'm able to, I think the key is, can you put the stitches in the right place? Can you read the pattern? It's a Susan B. Anderson pattern, of course, split back snowflake hat, lovely chart to follow, which I've got no problem with at all. So can I put the stitches in the right place? Can I read the pattern? Do I know how to do the things which you would need to do to finish the pattern? Just the same, I said to Kay last night, actually, it's just the same with the double knitting. The amount of coasters I knit to try and get, you know, the technique down to a point where at least I could start knitting a hat was brilliant. You know, it was great fun to do. And what I'm finding with this is on every row there's something else new to learn, and that's fun. I think the only time you have a problem with a project is when you hit barriers that you can't get over, or barriers where you need so much help that you're not actually learning anything because you're firefighting. And, you know, when you firefight, you put the fire out and then you sort of forget about that and you crack on. Well, that's not happening. I am, you know, like last night, I had to learn how to catch a float the other side. And, you know, that, I don't really understand quite how I did it, but I did do it. So, and I managed to do it 4 or 5 times, which is really good.
You've been quite brave with it, I said to you, because normally I wouldn't recommend that you do a project for your first sort of like colourwork project where you've got to catch your floats, but this one had such long sort of stretches of one colour that you really had to do it.
Yeah. The key to success, as anyone who's done colourwork will know, is all about gauge. So, you know, I've got a good distance to knit on the hat, and at every stage I'm learning more about the gauge. And, you know, it started out too tight, then it's loosening off now, but then I worry that it's going to go too far the other way. But, you know, it's trial and error at the end of the day. And at the end of the day, if the hat finished up, you know, just continuing the work up, decreases and closing, that's a wearable item.
Oh, it's perfectly wearable, yeah.
You know, so
And blocking will definitely help.
even at this stage, I'm happy. I think, you know, that's extremely disheartening, isn't it? When, you know, you're knitting away, and we've all been there actually on projects. You start knitting away and you start looking at what's appearing underneath your needles, and you just think, this is not good. And I think that's the moment when...
But you've got to start somewhere, haven't you? And
You do. What I'm saying is, when you're in that position, it's quite depressing.
Yeah.
And, you know, that perhaps is the times where... I think if you try things too early, that's when you get in those. And it's so easy, isn't it?
And your Dan's knitting...
Oh, this was brilliant. I said to Kate, all right, okay, show me how to do it. So she goes, all right, here we go. I tried it once, I was like, forget that. Forget the two-handed approach.
You see, what I would do is...
Not going to happen with these.
I would have that colour in that hand, and then I would sort of tension that. I always have trouble tensioning. I do it kind of like I do when I crochet. So I'll be doing, you know, right-handed like I normally would as a right-handed knitter, and then I'll be using my left like this. And I've found that that's the best technique for me. But maybe I find that easier because I can crochet, and you hold your yarn in your left hand, as you know, when you crochet as a right-handed crochet. But you couldn't do that at all, could you?
No.
So you're using...
I'm using my double knitting approach.
He's got both strands over one finger, which is perfectly fine, you know. But
no,
I think
I don't do that.
you separate. Oh, right, okay.
So it's separated. So then I'm doing that with that, and doing that with that.
I think the danger. It's more difficult to control your tension, I find, when you have both strands in one hand. Because when I knit this hat, I did it two-handed, and I found that by using the two-handed technique, that kind of sorted out my tension. I didn't need to really think about making sure that the floats were nice and loose. It just seemed to work. So I think you just need to practice, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, tension's a funny thing, isn't it? Because when I knit, I know a lot of people do this flicking business, don't they? I've never been able to work this out. So they never let go of the right-hand needle. And then they do just this kind of flicky thing. I've tried it several times and I can't do it. What I do is I let go of the needle, and I'm actually holding it still with my left hand, and I'll wrap like that. And maybe that means that the yarn isn't quite as tight as if you are holding it like that and flicking. I'm not sure, really. I think it just depends on your technique generally, doesn't it? But I've never been able to knit where I'm holding that needle all the time and I never let go and just do that. Can't work it out at all. So.
But really enjoying the process, and I would say, what did I say to you the other day? I was enjoying doing colour work as much as knitting the Samantha
sweater.
Yeah,
you did say that. You did, yeah.
So you know how much I'm enjoying the Samantha. Well, I'm enjoying this an equal amount. And Kay said, imagine then if you do a colourwork sweater.
How you'll feel, yeah.
I might combust.
Oh, I really want this. It's coming out on the 22nd now, that new one by Jen Steingast.
Yes.
Have you seen it?
Jen Steingast, who is our Meet the Designer in our next edition of Knitability, which comes out next week.
It's called something Forest, isn't it?
Yeah, Silver Forest.
Silver Forest.
Yeah.
Oh my word, it's beautiful.
To be fair, I've not seen any of her designs which weren't beautiful.
No, they're all fantastic. But the Silver Forest, its fingering weight is the only thing. I wished it had been in worsted weight. I might have considered knitting it myself if it was in worsted weight. But fingering weight, I don't know.
She's just jumping on my bandwagon here. This is just not cricket.
Well, I've also been watching a lot of the Camabornia podcast lately, and everything that they knit, generally, there's a lot of colourwork going on, and it just kind of makes you want to have a go a bit more, doesn't it? So who knows whether I'll...
Well, go for it if you want to, but just remember what happened last year.
I know. But I certainly wouldn't start off with a jumper. That's madness, isn't it? If it was worsted weight, I might consider it, but not fingering weight. I know I would lose enthusiasm.
It's time for us to bring back an old favourite. Yes, it's time for the return, for one episode only, of What's on Your Bookshelf. Shush, please. Okay. Well, you wrote at length in the last issue of Missability about your disengagement with reading and your fear of why you couldn't find a book that you wanted to read. Have you found something?
I have, and it's all thanks to lovely Carol, to Kasnitz. She recommended this book to me. I think she'd seen someone else was reading it, and she sent me a message on Instagram to say, oh, you might be interested in this. So I went and had a look at it on Amazon, and I downloaded a sample to my Kindle, which is a brilliant thing that you can do. I do that all the time, but sadly I'd never usually want to buy the whole book. But this time I read the sample and I thought, you know what, I can read this. So I did. I bought the book, and it's called Caroline. It's basically it's a work of fiction, obviously, because there's no way you would know, the exact things that happened. But it's the Little House on the Prairie kind of story, but seen from the viewpoint of the mum, of Caroline, who is the mother. And this whole idea just really appealed to me, as a mother myself of a daughter. It kind of, I just thought, oh, that might be really interesting. And I read the sample and I thought, yeah, this is really interesting. And I bought the book and I'm really enjoying it. And it starts off, if you know the Little House on the Prairie stories, it starts off where they're moving from the log cabin in Little House in the Big Woods, which is the first book, and then move to Kansas. And it's that journey, and they've just got into Kansas, and I'm 20-something% through. So I'm not sure how far through the story it's going to go. But at the moment, they're still travelling, and they've been travelling for 2 months. They've still got quite a way to go through Kansas before they reach where they're going to settle for the first time. Charles, the father, he strikes me as being a kind of very itchy feet type of person. Doesn't like being in one place for very long, which I think when you've got a family is not necessarily the best way to be. I don't think it must be tricky for the family to be uprooted, and I think they did move quite a lot. Certainly just from reading the books with Bryony, I know that they moved quite a few times, and that must have been difficult. And certainly this journey, oh my goodness, you don't know anything about the journey having read the books by Laura. She just makes reference to it saying, they travelled through this state and this state and this state. I can't remember them. I don't know my states very well, but they ended up in Kansas initially. It's a long way. I think they've travelled about 400 miles so far, which in today's terms, it's not very far really, is it? But when you're travelling in a covered wagon with horses and you're going about 15 miles a day, that's a long way.
That is.
And, to be travelling. And Caroline was pregnant at the time. And I'm presuming this is fact. They must have known, from when she had her children that she would have been pregnant at the time. So she's got 2 small children. Laura is 3 and Mary is 5, I believe, 5 or 6. And she's pregnant and she's travelling in a covered wagon in winter. They had to go in winter because the Mississippi needed crossing initially, and it had to be frozen for them to cross it. There obviously wasn't any other way of crossing it at the time. So they had to leave in winter. It's freezing cold, 2 small children. I honestly don't know how they bore it. I mean, Caroline is not enjoying this journey at all. She's really, really putting a brave face on it. Charles seems to be enjoying it. This thing that, and obviously this is a work of fiction. I don't know how much the author has researched into what actually happened or anything like that, or how much of it is come from her imagination. But obviously from the fact that they moved a lot, that must have been his character, because in those days it was the man, I think, that made these kinds of decisions, wasn't it? So that in itself tells you that he's more got this kind of transient sort of nature. You know, Caroline is not enjoying this journey at all. She didn't want to leave. She was really upset when she left, and I said to Bryony, because I've been telling Bryony what's been happening, I said, you know, she really didn't want to leave and didn't want to leave her log cabin. Everything was really nice there and she had family close by and all this. So yeah, I'm really, really enjoying it. And I'm kind of, at the moment, I'm kind of a bit mad with Charles for making them do this awful journey, you know, and uprooting them away from family. And in those days, that was a huge thing to do, because chances are you might not ever see your family again, moving that kind of distance.
Absolutely, gosh.
Back in that sort of time.
Yeah.
So to think that, you know, you're moving away from your family, I might never see these people again, that must have been really, really hard to do. And I expect he must have had very good reasons for doing that. And I think what they're doing basically is they sold their log cabin, they've got the money from that, and they're using that to buy a lot of land. I think he bought a lot of land where they're actually planning on settling, and he wanted to farm the land and he thought he would make a lot more money. And I think that's the kind of theory behind it. So it's really, really good. And if you like the Laura Ingalls Wilder stories, I think you will enjoy it, because it does give a different perspective to it all. Yeah, it's the same kind of story, so you know where it's going, but it's from the viewpoint of this poor woman who is pregnant and having to deal with all the things that she's dealing with. I feel so sorry for her, but I'm really, really enjoying it.
Interesting that you're re-engaged with books in general as being through reading a book which is basically a similar story to one you've already read.
Yeah, I know, that's true.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No, but maybe that's a good thing, because I guess however you had to re-engage, for me, I was happy to do whatever I needed to do, because it was starting to bother me that I just wasn't wanting to read anything. And that's
the question is, though, where do you go from there?
Well, I know.
And that raises another question.
Yeah.
That's, how do you pick new books? I think it's quite tricky. You know, you can go into bookshops, can't you, and pick up books and look for covers and read the backs and all of that. And perhaps that's, you know, something that should be done more. I mean, I do that, to be honest. Whenever when you're a bookshop, I go in and then I make notes on books that I quite like. Well, it clearly hasn't worked because you've not been able to find anything.
No.
But, and also you've done the sample thing and that's not worked either.
Yeah.
My fear with the sample thing is, though, Kay's just got me into that as well, and I just did that last night. And I just started reading a book about how Winston Churchill became Prime Minister, and actually it's really good. So, because sometimes those sort of history type books can be a bit stale. This one doesn't feel like it will be, and also it seems like a really interesting story because he nearly didn't. And it was over the course of a debate in the old House of Parliament, which of course, well, it was the chamber that got blew up very early on in World War II, and someone snuck a camera in. And there's some pictures.
Really?
Yeah. Now, I don't know if the pictures will be in the book. It makes me think perhaps you need the paperback, and that's a whole other story. But it looks like a really good book. But I also got 2 other samples. I got The Man with a Golden Typewriter, which is all about Ian Fleming. I was telling Kay about this. His grandson found all these letters which he wrote his wife Anne, and he's used the letters to do like a biography. So, you know, he's put them all in order, and that's how the story's told. And the reviews look really good. Not read the sample of that. All that said, I have just finished reading a fiction book. It's called The Lie of the Land. It's a very interesting book. I read it faster than I've read anything in a long time, but that's
quite
because...
a light read, wasn't it, I think, for you?
Well, yeah, because it's fiction. When you compare fiction to, let's say, a book like this, the fiction, you can just blitz it. It's a bit like the knitting, isn't it? If you're knitting with fingering weight and small needles, if you're reading a really heavy-duty book, if you then pick up light reading, it will. So, The Lie of the Land, some of you may well enjoy it.
This is like a lace-weight shawl.
Yeah.
And the other one was like a chunky cowl.
Yeah. The Lie of the Land was about a family which moves to the country. It's set right now. So they move to the country into an old farmhouse, and there's a murder, and it gets solved, and there's a couple who, you know, start off apart, and through the course of the book they, you know, start to come back together, and it's fine. You know, there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, I probably won't remember any of it in a week or two, but actually, does that matter?
No, I don't. I don't think that matters.
Yeah, because it served its purpose.
In the moment. You know, you live in the moment. You should try and live in the moment, shouldn't you? We don't.
Sometimes.
Well, I think you should always try and be present in the moment.
Yeah.
I mean,
But sometimes when I'm present in the moment, I want to read this.
Yeah, but I mean, when I was reading a lot of stuff about anxiety, to ground yourself in that moment is really, really helpful. And
Yeah.
you know, it does work.
Yeah.
And there's all these kinds of techniques to just, you know, to enable you to do that. So I think to live in that moment, whether it's like you say, in a couple of weeks you're going to forget about it, but you enjoyed it at the time, and
Yeah, well, it made me go to sleep.
well, that's always a good thing, I think.
It is. No dispute. You
It
see,
just helps your brain to relax. And
I shall segue into this book Kay got me at Christmas, and it is, I think, the best book I've ever read.
yeah, you've been saying that,
It
and you've
is
been telling us loads of things about it. I love Egypt. I would
Utterly phenomenal.
if I ever did, because the only thing I ever really wanted to do when I was a sort of older teenager was an archaeologist, and I particularly love Egypt, so I could have seen myself as an Egyptologist, definitely.
Well, what took me down this road is, as you know, I'm in the middle of researching History of Knitting Show, and the History of Knitting Show has taken me firmly into the realms of Egyptian history. I've never been particularly interested. I've been to Egypt, loved it, so's Kay, loved it, but I've never been so fascinated with it. Researching the History of Knitting Show led me to this book, and this book has made me realise that the Romans were idiots.
Egypt is where it was happening.
Seriously, we were throwing stones at each other, and they built the pyramids.
Yeah,
and
it is
had advanced writing.
It is
These
amazing
dudes,
when you think of it like that.
It's nuts.
Yeah.
And this book is brilliantly written because it literally starts at the beginning, and it's a long story. It starts at the beginning and it runs right through to the end.
Yeah,
It's literally
thousands
called,
of years of history, wasn't it?
literally called The Rise and Fall of Ancient
It
Egypt.
was amazing, and I said to you the other day, you know, how did they get the pyramids in that era? How did they get it completely flat like that?
They used water in a bath, and they used 2 stars and like a set square, so that they could measure the distance
between the stars. And they did it every night, you said.
They did.
They did it every night.
It was a religious ceremony.
To make sure that it was, you know, that they were building on the dead flat. I mean, that's just amazing, isn't it?
The links which you can bring forward into the world we live in today. Churches, for example, stemmed from the temples which pharaohs built. To find that out and to understand, and when you think about it, it makes sense, because the Romans went across the world, didn't they, and they conquered everywhere. So the Romans get to Egypt, they see all these stunning buildings. The Romans then embrace Christianity. They're pulling together Christianity and what they've seen in these beautiful, stunning buildings in Egypt. So obviously, if I'm building a church, it's going to look like, it's going to feel like the tombs which the Egyptians were building 3,000 years before. It's insane. It's exceptional. But we'd love to know, what are you reading?
Yeah.
What have you enjoyed reading? And how do you find other books in the genres that you enjoy? Because, you know, it would be lovely to find a foolproof technique. So, you know, Kay would know when she finishes her book, okay, what is the next one? You know, maybe we're missing something. Maybe, you know, there is...
I don't think it's that. I don't think I'm doing anything different. I just think it's frame of mind. I don't know.
Quite
you know,
possible.
I've gone through phases of reading, and there's certainly
it might be frame of mind, but you've now found a book and you're into it.
Yeah, and it's brilliant that I am really enjoying the book, and I downloaded it on my Kindle. I'm reading it on my Kindle.
I do feel like I need to backtrack that. I did make a statement there a minute ago where I called the Romans idiots. I don't think that.
He doesn't really mean.
I don't think that at all. What I mean is, in context, the Romans conquered with the hammer. The Egyptians conquered with the word.
Yeah.
And, you know, the Egyptians shaped the world more than the Romans. The Egyptians shaped the world we live in today. Thousands of years before the Romans.
You know, I mean, I said to you, how is it that one, you know, race of people, group of people like that were doing what they were doing in Egypt, and then you compare them to what we were doing, for example, in this country.
We were grunting at each other and looking hairy.
I mean, it's just...
The answer was simple. We lived in a densely forested...
Oh, right.
Yes, there was lots of resources, but we didn't know how to get to them. When the Iron Age hit, yes, that's the moment when we started to rise up. The Egyptians lived in a place which, yes, it was extremely warm, but there was a great big river, the Nile,
Yeah.
which every season flooded and created brilliantly fertile land.
And it still does that now.
So, but it doesn't do it to the extent because
No,
they put up
the dam,
yeah.
the Aswan Dam. Yeah.
The reason
But it's
why
still
the
very
Egyptians,
fertile.
did so well so quickly was because the need for food was removed. Food was plentiful. So you didn't have to be fighting the tribe over there and the tribe over there to get food. We've got loads of food, so we can start thinking about other things. We can start thinking about systems of government.
Well, that's amazing, isn't it?
Well, it is. And, hopefully I'll be able to bring you a taste
It's a
of
pity
this.
we can't do an out and about in Egypt,
Well,
isn't it?
let me tell you, this forms a
be good.
huge part of the history of knitting. And the challenge that I currently have is taking a story which is vast and getting it down into 12 episodes. I mean, it may be that I need to look at this in a different way and just go, look, we'll start telling the story and it's finished when it's finished.
Yeah.
But, at the moment, there's so much information there, I need to just nail down where it's going to start. But come and tell us in the What's in Your Bookshelf thread, what have you been reading, what have you been enjoying, and how do you find new books? It would be lovely to know all those things. And do please as well, last episode we're doing What's on Your TV, please come and keep telling us what you've been enjoying watching.
Yeah.
Because we're right at the moment where we're going to need stuff. It's time for us to find out what is going to be the next thing on the 7 wonders of knitting. Now, we've established already that Circular's made it, but we've listened to you and we've also listened to Kay, and we're now going to take it in categories.
Because we think that was a bit unfair. It was not really weighted correctly, was it?
So we're going to go yarn as a category, tools as a category, techniques. Yarn, tools and techniques. So today's category is yarns.
Yarns.
I went first last time.
All right.
So it's time for you to go first. It's time for Kay to get on her soapbox and propose something which, remember, you can then come vote for. And please come vote. There is a link below, so click on that link. That will take you to a page. You cast your vote and tell us whether you'd like Kay's thing, which I'm going to tell you about now, or my thing, which I'll tell you about in a minute.
My proposal for yarns is it's a base, it's a breed of sheep. I'm not quite sure how you would describe it, but I am putting forward that it be Falkland Merino.
So you are saying that one of the 7 wonders of knitting is Falkland Merino.
Falkland. I wouldn't say Falkland.
However you want to say it, it's
Falkland Merino. Yes.
Why?
Well, where would you start with it?
You've got to sell it to the people, baby.
Where would you start with it, really? I mean, for starters, where would we be without merino? We've all knit with merino, haven't we? I don't know. I don't think that every merino base is Falkland merino. I think you get merinos in lots of other places as well. But I've knit a lot with Falkland merino, and in particular the blacker yarns, and also there's a West Yorkshire spinner yarn as well that I've knit with a few times that has Falkland merino in it. And it's just the most fantastic fibre. It's so soft, yet, I mean, I know the blacker one, which isn't a superwash, it's got a lot of bounce and body. It's just a beautiful, beautiful yarn. It takes the dye fantastically well. The sheep are brilliant. They're these massive, they have lots of, and there's lots of fleece on them. They look very typically sheep-like. Do you know what I mean when I say that? They're a lovely breed. I just think it's a fantastic all-round yarn. You can, if you add other fibres to it, then it's brilliant for socks, as we know, merino nylon socks. Fantastic for garments. It can be a bit pilly. I would say that's maybe the only downside, but it's a very soft fibre, and I think we know, don't we, that very soft fibres tend to be more inclined to pill. I don't see that particularly as a downside because we've got techniques to get rid of the pills, haven't we? And I think it's something that you can live with, to have such a beautiful garment or hat or cowl or socks or anything. And I just think it's a fantastic thing, and it's my favourite thing to knit with is the blacker yarns, Falkland merino. I absolutely love it.
So out of all the yarn base, is it a base? Is that right?
Well, it's a base, yes, but
it's a yarn.
It's a breed of sheep as well, isn't it? Because it's not.
So that is above all the others
It's my favourite yarn. It's definitely
It
my
is a
favourite
wonder of
yarn.
knitting.
Well, I think so. I mean, all sheep are wonders, aren't they? But if you have to narrow it down, then you've just got to think of what your favourite thing is.
Yeah. Above all other yarns, that is the one that you love to knit with the most.
Yes.
Yes. It is so great. It is, in fact, worthy of a place on our
Well, I
7
think
wonders
so.
of knitting
I think
list.
so, yes. I
Well,
think so.
it's going to be for them to decide, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Depends what you've chosen.
Well, it does depend what I've chosen. So, what have I chosen? Well, I've chosen something which we spoke earlier about patterns and about how a really good pattern connects you directly to the person who's written it. When it's written well, it's a direct connection into their head because you can then produce what they want you to produce. I think there's something in the yarn world which is a direct connection
Right.
to the person who spun it. And that is, of course, hand spun.
Oh, handspun.
My proposal
Right.
for one of the
I should
7
have
wonders of
known.
knitting is hand spun yarn. And why is that the case? Well, hand spun to me is like a fine wine or a beautiful whiskey or any of those amazing things which are created by someone or a group of people which take all the best bits from all their... And it's like being a musician. You know, I was taught to listen to all my favourite musicians and to become a conglomeration of all of them in my playing. And then, of course, to add some of your own things as well. Well, I think that's what handspun is. You know, there's so many different types and, you know, the barber poling that you see and then the thick and the thin. And, you know, I think knitting with handspun is the best thing ever.
It's a good proposal.
I absolutely adore it. Every different type has just a different feel and, you know, yes, some are better than others, but I mean, I suppose that would come down to the base that's been used.
Well, the base and the spinner as well.
Yeah.
How experienced the spinner is, I think.
To be fair though, I think I've knit with some
I
fairly
think-
rustic ones,
Yeah,
which
I-
actually...
Yeah, I mean, I think you could happily knit with any yarn that you'd spun, no matter how experienced you were, because it's the joy of knowing that you produced that yarn as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or somebody you know produced that yarn if you've not spun it.
And I know if we were to set up a new civilization right now, similar to the Egyptians, where we made huge, great statues of our idols.
I know what he's going to say.
Do you know? Do you know?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
And I know what would happen. You know, you would arrive, you'd sail down the Nile, and there would be a 300-foot high statue of Susan Claudino spinning yarn.
Susan, if you're watching, she's going to be laughing her head off, isn't she?
And then you'd come round the river, and then over on the other side there'd be like the Sphinx with the head of Susie Gawley.
Yeah, I was waiting for that one.
And then you'd come round the next, you know, the next time you'd go around, and there would be just a small statue of Erica Luda.
Oh, Erica.
And there's so many others. There's so many others too. So my proposal is handspun yarn, and you know as well as I do that I'm going to win this week.
I think that's a distinct possibility.
But come and vote for who you think is right. Is it Falkland Merino or is it handspun? Which of those two things deserves to join circular needles on our 7 wonders of knitting? Only you can tell us.
Yep.
And we will tell you which wins in the next episode. It's time for us to find out. Kay Jones, what's off your needles?
Well, I do have some things. I've finished a few things, which has been very nice. I finished Dan's socks. I cast these on the 6th of December. I looked back on my Instagram feed
You
because
should be ashamed of yourself.
I know.
Utterly ashamed.
I know. I don't tend to put my projects on Ravelry
Says
until
me.
I've finished them these days, because sometimes it might be something that I don't finish and then I'd have to delete it, and then that's like, you know, a bit of a faff. So I tend to put them on when I've finished things. But yes, I finished his Regia socks. Now, these just seemed bigger for some reason, and then
We'll find out, won't we?
yeah, I mean, they're not. I used 92 grams altogether. And I feel like that's kind of a little bit more than I normally use, but maybe not. I think I knit the leg 5 rows longer than I normally do. So there they are. This is the Regia, I think it was called Seasons 4-ply, and this colourway was, the translation I think is Father Christmas or Santa Claus. It's colour 09414.
Oh, that's going to make me feel like they're Christmas socks, Neil.
Well, I don't think they look particularly Christmassy, do you?
Now all I see is Santa when I look at them.
Well, yeah, we'll save them if you want.
With his white hair and his white beard. We saw a man yesterday with the best eyebrows I've ever seen in my life.
We couldn't stop laughing.
Oh my goodness. Kay was watching another episode of Michael Portillo, the great British Railway Journeys.
It was one of the early ones.
I'm not joking you, he had more hair on his eyebrows than on his head. And I think that was perhaps why he'd let his eyebrows grow, because he'd gone bald.
Maybe so. It was an old man, and he, completely white hair and white eyebrows, but they were, you could have combed them.
You could style them. You could perm them, plait them.
I mean, what would possess
Dreadlocks.
you to just do that? You just trim them, wouldn't you? Anyway. So yeah, these are all done. Just plain socks, 72 stitches, 2.5mm I always use for Dan's socks. Usual heel flat.
Do you remember my brother used to have appalling eyebrows?
No.
Yeah. My eldest brother, I feel very bad now because he's the one I work with on the music for the show. He used to have really, really, really long eyebrows. And then me and my middle brother, we sort of pinned him down at one family event. He was heartbroken.
I told him.
Yeah, he was heartbroken. And now they're always lovely and trimmed. We shamed him.
So yeah, they're all done and you can have those now. They came out lovely. I have got a little bit left. I say a little bit, it's probably, there might be 20 grams left there because I use contrast for the heels and toes. So yeah, I've got a nice little chunk. It's lovely yarn, and I've got another ball of this actually that Sarah sent me, which was the colour that I really wanted, and I'm going to knit those this year for you at Christmas, and I will absolutely use it, not a problem. But it isn't opal, I will say that. I did quite often, I would get thinner bits of yarn, and that just makes me worry about durability. Luckily the heels are, this is opal, and this is opal that I used, and just cream. I mean, that's good, but I didn't like that there was quite a lot of areas where the yarn went thinner. So yeah, but it totally, apart from that, completely fine. And I will be knitting the other ball of this that I've got this Christmas, which is more sort of traditionally, it's greens, like a tealy sort of green. But they're all done.
While you sort out your next What's Off Your Needles, I've just realised there is only one way that you can effectively vote on the 7 Wonders of Knitting.
Right.
You need to get yourself a skein of handspun,
Right.
get yourself a skein, a Falkland Merino. Cast them both on.
Yeah.
Cast them both on. Cast them both on. I shall return to my school elocution lessons, and then you can make an informed decision.
So yeah, if you've got both of those things available
But it's
to
an excuse. I'm giving you an excuse.
My next finished item is another pair of socks, actually. What am I like? And this is the pair for Bryony that I was knitting last time. So it's...
Can I just ask, what sort of a mother refuses her offspring socks? This one.
What do you mean?
You finished those socks, Bryony wants to wear them, and you said, you can't have them until I filmed with them.
Because I actually finished
She prioritised
these.
you over Bryony's warm feet.
I think I finished these the weekend after we last recorded. So these have been sat for over a week, that she's not been able to wear them, and she loves these.
Do you know what Kay did?
So-
She hung them on her bedroom door. So every morning Bryony woke up and saw them hanging there.
I did not. So I used
Disgrace.
this is a little bit of the Four Founders colourway from London House Yarns. That was a lovely gift. And then I dyed up this colourway, which I call Time Turner, because I think it does look like the lovely Time Turner that Hermione wears. And Bryony does have a Time Turner as well. So these are now going to go to her, and I use the same umbrella toe, and they're lovely. I imagine they're going to pill in about 3 seconds because this is a cashmere base. But doesn't matter, does it? They'll be lovely and soft on her feet, I think, and she'll really enjoy having them. So I'm going to give those to her when she gets home from school today, and they are yours.
That's great. I need to ask you a question.
Well, that was gratitude, wasn't it?
Thank you
No,
very
they're
much.
Great.
They are great. Thank you.
Another pair of socks.
Thank you. No. When Kay said, what you said cashmere, didn't you?
Yeah.
Does anyone think of a band when Kay says cashmere? If you are thinking of a band, just comment on who the band is in the show notes.
I'm not.
I want to see if anyone out there is as cool as I think they are.
Oh, right. And then the last thing I finished...
Cashmere band.
Cashmere. No. And the last thing I finished was the hat that I was knitting last time, the design that's going to be the March instalment of the Platinum collection is finished. And this is the twister. So it's fingering weight hat with all these gorgeous, don't the stitches look lovely? This camera's amazing actually for picking up colours and stitches, it's just brilliant. And I added a tassel, look how cute. And I was going to do a pom-pom now, pom-poms. This brings me on to something. Did anybody watch Country File?
Well, I'm guessing the amount of people who did is probably quite small.
Okay, there's a programme here in the UK, it's a BBC programme, you could get it on iPlayer. It's called Country File. The one that was on Sunday just gone. They did this piece about pom-poms and in particular the fur trade and how some pom-poms are being sold as faux fur and they're actually real fur. And they had this one woman on who bought this hat online.
The implication was more than some, wasn't it?
Well, no, they proved it. They absolutely proved it.
The implication was there's a lot.
It goes on a lot.
In the low...
I had no idea this went on.
The low price point.
This woman bought this hat online and it says, they showed you the website and it said faux fur pom-pom. When she got it, she thought, I don't think that's faux fur, I think that's real fur. And she only thought that because I think her daughter is involved in something along those lines, and it just made her question it. What they actually did was they took the pom-pom away, and also the presenter was wearing a hat as well that had got a pom-pom on, and some viewers had questioned whether that was faux fur or real fur. So they tested both of them. The presenter's hat was a fake fur pom-pom, but the one that this woman had bought online saying it was faux fur, it was real fur, and it was fox fur. You know, they apparently this goes on a lot, that these pom-poms are being sold as faux fur and they're not, they're real fur.
They raised a very important point though, and that was that faux fur, proper faux fur, well, it's made...
It's acrylic, so it's made from petroleum. As we know, acrylic is made from petroleum, and really that is not... To me, it's not a suitable alternative. And
well, we have a serious problem in our oceans with these microplastics.
Yeah.
And, you know...
I think we should be doing everything we can to minimise
our
impact on the on the planet. And I think one of the biggest areas is plastic, because every bit of plastic that's ever produced will still exist. It doesn't biodegrade, as I think we all know. And everything comes in plastic, doesn't it? I hate it. But this thing in particular just made me think, do you know what? As knitters, there's an alternative, and we can just make woolen pom-poms, can't we? And that is what I do. I don't actually buy, because I did once buy a pom-pom, and it was a fur pom-pom, but it was from, is it Toft Alpacas? And they actually make their alpaca pom-poms from alpacas that have died naturally. And it's a way of the farmers still getting some money for those animals that die of natural causes. And I thought, well, that's an acceptable thing. But I didn't like the pom-pom when it arrived. I didn't like the quality of it. And I've never bought a fake pom-pom before either. I always make a woolen one. I think really you see so many people using the fake pom-poms, and that's obviously their choice to do that, and everybody's perfectly entitled to make their own decisions. But I think when we're knitters and we've got an alternative that everybody can make with wool, and they're just as lovely, I think, in my opinion, and I think maybe lovelier, then maybe that's what we should try and start doing a little bit more, and just try and in some small way minimise the plastic situation, you know. But this article, you know, you should really go and watch that, the Country File thing.
But so you have anyway, a lovely hat,
but I put
with a lovely
tassel. So the hat's all finished, and this pattern will be going out to Gold Plus patrons in March. So that's
part of the platinum
doesn't it?
collection.
I will put it on, but I've got a hairband in.
It's time for the very last Beyond the World Food Aisle. And today we are finishing our trilogy of army meals. As I said earlier on the show, we started with American, we then tried British, and now it's time to try Australian.
Australian.
And I've got to say, this is impressive stuff.
We've just emptied all the...
We mentioned in the first
Chocolate
episode
ration.
the American one. Do you remember we said about the chocolate ration and how that used to be there? Well, in Australia, it's still the noodles. Noodles.
Natural muesli.
Bread. There's bread.
Jam sandwich
bread.
biscuit. Bread.
Feel it.
Gosh.
Mash.
Wow, it's smash. Oh, I'm going to like that.
It's here.
Oh.
All hail the Lord of World Food Aisles. Look what I have found. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the Fred.
Oh, wow. Let's see. Oh, it's like a bottle opener type thing.
This is, what's it called? This is the Field Ration Eating Device.
Oh,
it's
right.
a cousin of the American P38 tin opener.
So that's like a little spoon.
This, my darling, is a prized possession. If you go online,
Oh, really?
people want these things. And they want
Really?
them because they do so many things. It's obviously a very sharp
Very
tin
sharp,
opener.
yeah.
But people use them for cleaning boots.
Oh.
They use them for screwdrivers and
Right.
prizing things apart. And,
So Fred stands for field.
It's a field ration eating device. It mustn't be
Right.
confused with anything else. And it is essentially useful for boot scraping, cutting, wire stripping, prying things apart, and opening boxes. It is. Oh, look. That's a blade. That's
Yeah.
brilliant for opening boxes.
Yeah.
As Kay works through some of these things and decides, so we need to try biscuits. We need to try
Yeast
some sort
extract,
of
that's going to be Marmite, isn't it? We've got sweet and sour chicken, or we've got lamb and tomato sambal.
That's got curry powder in it. We're going to be better off with that.
I would say, yeah. Sweet and,
Because it's only got tamarind, and you've had that in things before, and
Right.
that's not so hot.
Sweet and sour chicken it is then, I think. What's
Let's
that?
just.
Protein drink.
Let's just. I've got to say, out of the bag, this is the most impressive one I've seen.
Right. We've
Do you not
got
think?
a tin of processed cheese. That's a bit scary, isn't it? I've never had processed cheese in a tin.
That's good. Whole grain cereal bar.
M&M's. M&M's.
Lifesavers.
Lifesavers.
But they're musk flavoured.
What? What? Musk?
That's wrong. That literally smells like aftershave from the 1970s.
It does. That's bizarre. Why would you have musk flavoured Lifesavers?
Please explain to us why that is done.
That's so bizarre.
I'm intrigued to know.
Oh, look, I've got some muesli where you just add water again.
Are you sure?
Maybe added with water, non-dairy creamer. Oh, no, maybe
No,
not.
no.
Maybe you have to add the creamer. Oh, no, you do.
Yeah.
Oh, you see, so that's not as good, is it? You've got to add the creamer
No,
to then
I
add
mean,
the water.
It's a tricky one, really. I'm not really certain.
What's that? Sugar-free gum. Oh, no, I thought
right.
it was peppermint tea bag.
I'd have it, yeah.
Chewing gum.
Sugar-free gum.
Chewing gum, another tea bag.
Before we chow down, which I think that's army speak,
Do we sound like we're in the army? I don't think so.
I must just tell you about the rabbit hole that I got sucked down.
All right.
So I knew that this Fred thing was in here, this field ration eating device.
Yeah.
So I thought I need to just look that up and do a little bit of research. Well, I hit on a website that was biking terminology. Oh look, it's like full on. So I think we should now, okay? I think it's time for us to just explore. Well, then, let's just explore before we eat. Let's just explore the biking terminology that I found out about. So, biking terminology, these are words that are used by serious bikers. These are the guys that, you see out in their skin-tight gear.
Yes,
like proper serious bikers. So, they have a lingo. They have a lingo. And I'm going to link it below so you can have a look at this as well. Would you like to know what the Eye of Mordor is? Do you remember the Eye of Mordor in The Hobbit? In Lord of the Rings? It was that thing up on the top of Sauron, on top of the tower. Well,
Right.
if you're out cycling and someone says, look at that Eye of Mordor, the Eye of Mordor is the bit of skin visible when someone's wearing a t-shirt not designed for cycling and it's flapping around in the wind. So the t-shirt's flapping around and you can
Right.
see the skin on their back.
Right. right.
There's more. Firefighter. Someone who insists on telling absolutely everyone that they're on their way by constantly ringing their bell. I like that one. Cliptastrophe. What is a cliptastrophe?
Well, your clips of, what you clip your feet into. Is it something to do with that?
You're right. I was thinking that it was, the clips that you put around your trouser
They
legs.
don't wear those.
Because these are serious cyclists.
Because they have lycra.
A cliptastrophe is someone who doesn't unclip their shoes quick enough and nearly falls off their bike as they stop.
Right.
A flipper is someone who cycles in flip-flops.
Oh,
Because
gosh.
it's
Is that a
constantly
thing?
flipping. That clearly is a thing. The Hasselhoff. This is my favourite. The Hasselhoff is someone who cycles without a shirt and who has a very large amount of chest hair. Now, there are many, many words in this list. Links it below so you can go look. And how did they end up there? Because I typed in Fred.
And what's cycling got to do with Fred?
Fred is someone whose cycling abilities will never match the quality of his gear.
Right.
So this is someone who has...
a bit random.
This is some... Well, you see, I'm not sure if it is
So
because...
he's got all the gear, but actually he's not very good.
He's not got the skills.
Oh, right, okay.
All the
Right.
gear, but he doesn't really go out very much.
He's a
and
Fred, that one.
He's a Fred. Yeah, you've got it. So, what are we going to try? Sweet and sour chicken, definitely.
Proper loo roll.
Oh,
It looks
come on.
like loo roll.
Sweet and sour chicken.
Yes.
Biscuits.
Yes.
Creamy chicken soup.
Creamy chicken soup.
Add contents of this pack to boiling water and make up to 250 mils. I mean, you could make that, I suppose.
Do you want me to do that?
Well, I don't know. What do you think? Yeah, I think go with the soup. Go with the cream cracker.
Cream crackers.
And I'm going to have a bit of this beef
Do
snack.
you know we should open the processed cheese and have a look at it? Because
Okay.
I've never
Okay. Right, let's get cooking.
used it.
Okay, we're back. And things took a bit of a turn. I opened this and it's smelt a bit bad. It's improved with heating a little bit, but it's
just-
very sloppy.
It looks, I'll be honest, kind of looks like dog food.
Yeah, I mean,
There's not a lot of substance to it.
it's hot. Oh, God, that doesn't smell good at all.
Does it not?
No.
I don't think I want to try it.
You don't have to. That's hard.
Just try
That's
the liquidy
really
bit.
hard.
Just try the liquid. It's very liquid. That like the other ones looked like a meal. This looks like a soup.
No, I have to try it properly.
Right.
Otherwise, I'm not being fair, am I? So, here we go. It's the first time I'm actually really concerned and feel a bit sick.
I don't want to try it. Oh, the texture didn't seem very nice.
No, it's a bit tough.
If you were starving.
That's not so nice.
Well, look. Oh my gosh, it's quite hard. I've opened the processed cheese and it's completely hard.
That looks like butter. Oh, that looks quite cool.
It's like a dairy sort of.
Put it on a cracker and we'll both try some at the same time.
Right. It's not very soft. It's quite a.
Oh, it smells really strongly of cheese.
Right. Okay.
Okay, ready? Here we go. I've had worse.
It's like dairy, kind of, isn't it?
Yeah, it's okay. That's okay.
It's all right. I would eat that.
I bet you
It's
it's
quite
like that.
salty. I don't know whether that's the cracker or the
I wonder as well.
cracker. It's Huntley and Palmer's. How cool is that?
I don't even know what that means.
A very old manufacturer, Huntley and Palmer's.
Let's see if I can use the thread to get into this.
I mean that's okay. Very salty. It must be the cheese. Let's have a biscuit.
Oh, I totally have.
Oh,
I mean,
it's okay. Oh, what's that? What is that?
it's wet.
What is it?
It's a peppered beef. I mean, Jack Links, they sell that in the shops.
Oh gosh.
That's like jerky.
Yeah, it is like joking. The biscuit's okay. We also made some.
That's nice.
Oh, is that nice?
Oh, that's nice.
We made some creamy chicken soup, which looks all right actually. And there's peas, little bits of pea and something else.
better
That
try
must
it,
be
then.
chicken.
I better try it. Oh, it's a crouton.
Oh, it's a crouton.
That's all right. That's
It's all
all
right.
right.
It's all right.
Yeah. That's quite nice. That's like going back in time.
It is like going back in time. It's exactly like a cup of soup. Do you remember cup of soups? Still do them, don't they?
I
It's
think
made me want one now.
we should check the quality of this. Oh. There's definitely been some heat damage.
Oh gosh. Oh my word. Look at that. That's the chocolate.
Now that's what happens, isn't it, when
Yeah.
it's bloomed? Is that right?
It's the heat. It's this heat and then cold.
And I think they call that blooming, don't they?
Probably.
Yeah.
But that's the atmosphere. Look, we've got another dark substance.
What is it?
It's fruit.
Is
You
it?
know, yeah.
What's it? Oh, it smells nice. I like the smell of it. What do you think?
It's okay. Mixed fruit. It's so that you get fibre.
Oh, that's all right as well.
That's okay.
Oh, I like that.
So, I mean, everything has been totally fine apart from the actual meal. And I imagine this one also just feels like complete mush.
I really like that a lot.
Well, finish it then.
What would it spoil my lunch?
Well, it's unlikely. This also just feels very
That's
mushy.
the type of thing that I think would be great midway through a run. I mean, that tastes fruity and it's delicious. That is really nice. We've got to give it a score.
Right.
I'm thinking 9.5.
I don't think I could give it a 10 because that meal wasn't good.
It wasn't. But everything else...
Jam.
And, you know, if it came to it, the quality of what's here is really good. You know, you showed Huntley and Palmer's biscuits.
M&M's.
Jack
those,
Link's
yeah.
peppered steak, you know, that's really nice. Good quality soup.
Look, I've got
Proper
some jam.
packet of M&M's, you know. Bread. We got to see the bread.
That's all right.
Look.
Gosh. How bizarre. Look at that.
It's bread.
Smells like bread.
It really does.
Should try it.
Dip it in your soup.
Oh, you could dip it in
What
the
a
soup.
winner. I mean, that's really
Look,
good.
you see, this is... I like jam in a tube. This is excellent.
There's only one thing that's let it down, and that was that meal. That meal was just weird. So, 9.5.
I'm loving my jam in a tube.
I've got to say, the winner, and we're not just saying this, the winner was the British one. Second place, it was tied with the American one, but it just pipped the American one at the post because it had so many branded products in there and so many things like Thai food tea and things that I think had been done deliberately to make you feel like you were at home. So American second, and in third place, but a very close third place, because I've got to say that is the nicest thing I've eaten.
Everything has been brilliant.
Exceptional quality.
It's just the meal, isn't...
Yeah,
It's
which
very nice.
it makes me concerned about that meal.
Yeah, I know.
So that is the end of Beyond the World Food Aisle. It's been such a journey. You know, so many interesting things that we've tried, from that Jamaican cake that we got, a huge thing, and you know, all these amazing meals. Thank you so much to the people who've sent these in. It's
thank
been
you.
so enjoyable. And we now say goodbye to the World Food Aisle.
I know.
And we welcome
I don't think I'll be having processed
No.
cheese in a can anytime soon.
and we welcome in the Endy Bits.
Endy Bits.
Now, before you show some stuff, the Bakery Bear.
We should try one of them.
But yeah, that's like that's like something you drop in the loo.
It is.
Yeah.
That's what it smells like.
It's disgusting. Maybe we should save them for another show
Try them.
and try them live, because they don't look nice at all. So I'll put those over there so we don't forget those.
Right.
Endy Bits.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to say very little about this. We have a Patreon-only podcast which is coming out on Sunday, and we'll be talking about this at length. But I think it's been too long since someone has been in the kitchen. I think it's time that Kay had her own brand new show.
Ooh, it's exciting.
Coming in podcast episode 96.
96.
And it will be in podcast episodes. This is not an exclusive Patreon thing.
No.
This is, because we're very conscious that we're rolling up to episode 100, and we want to bring back some of the things which are key elements of the Bakery Bears podcast.
Yes. So,
What is it?
we are going to be doing the Bakery Bears Pudding Club.
Say nothing more. Act casual.
I can't say any more.
Don't say any more, because we're going to talk about it at length in the Patreon-only podcast on Sunday.
Right, okay.
And we'll preview it properly in episode 95.
Right.
And then it'll be with you for the first time in episode 96. But I think we should just say one thing about the Bakery Bears Pudding Club.
Yeah.
It involves a lot of audience participation.
Well, if you want to participate.
Yes. Well, even if you don't want to physically participate, you can still participate.
Oh, right, okay. Yes.
Yes. It's going to be amazing fun.
Yes.
We're delighted.
You will absolutely want to make the things that I shall be making.
We've listened to so many of you who've said how much you enjoy Kay's cooking segments. Kay conceived a whole new show herself, which is just superb, and we're going to be delighted to bring it to you from episode 96.
I'm so excited for you all. I know two of the things I'm going to be making, and the first one I'm going to be making is something that I want everybody to just make and just experience, because it is truly
exceptional.
Yes.
Oh yes.
It is something that really, you've got to try. It's just fantastic.
So that's our big announcement. The Bakery Bears Pudding Club starts in episode 96.
96.
I can't speak today. Starts in episode 96. Patrons talking about it at length in the Patronly podcast, which is out on Sunday at 2 p.m.
Yeah.
in the Bakery Bears private Facebook group, and then a recording will be published 24 hours after that for all patrons to access on Patreon. The next Etsy shop update.
Right, if you're watching this podcast straight away, then it's tomorrow. But it'll be Saturday the 24th of February, and it will be at 6 p.m. this time.
So the next Etsy shop
Mean
update.
Time, GMT, 6 p.m. And I'll show you a couple of things that are going in. I thought that might be interesting. I've dyed up some more of the Nocturne Alley. That was really popular. You all seem to really love it. So I've done a nice big batch of Nocturne Alley, which is this one.
Ooh.
I know, it's
Yummy.
really lovely. So Nocturne Alley will be there on a sparkle base.
You were very conscious, weren't you, that lots and lots of people wanted it, and there wasn't
Yeah.
that many, so you've done loads.
I've done
that's
a
gonna
nice
give
batch.
the
Yeah.
opportunity for everyone who wants one to get one.
And then this is a new
That's
one.
gorgeous.
It is lovely, isn't it? I know, it's lovely. I've done this is another new one. And I've called this one Dusted Dreams, because it just made me think of nighttime and that kind of nighttime sky. So this is Dusted Dreams. So there'll be a nice batch of that, again on sparkle. I did all sparkle this time, I think, actually.
Because you're a sparkly lady.
Yes, and then I did this one. This is a bit of a mad colourway, but actually I think it's really fun. This one is Disco Inferno, and it's just bonkers pinks and purples and greens and peach and just fun colours. So there's only a couple of these, because what I did was I dyed it on a mini and loved it, so I thought I'll just try a couple on big skeins, but I'll do some more of this next time. So there's just a couple this time. And then the other thing that'll be in there is some minis. I dyed up a little bit of What You Fancy, and I'm keeping one of these actually for my blanket because I loved these colours. Oh, they're so fun. And this one, look, is the Disco Inferno. It's really fun. I think they all came out so pretty, I think, this time. I love... Oh, that was close. I love this one. Gorgeous. So there'll be some mini sets as well. Going into the
So that's the
Etsy
next
shop. Yeah.
Etsy shop update at 6 p.m. GMT on Saturday, the 24th of February.
Yes.
The next patron exclusive
Yes.
Agatha Christie
Yes.
mystery yarn
Yes.
update. So this is month 2 of the 3-month
Yep.
series.
Yes.
That will be at 7 p.m.
On the same day.
on our Patreon page.
Yes, on the
So
same
that's-
day on Saturday.
Yeah, it's the usual drill. There's already been a post gone out
Yeah.
about this, patrons, but remember, you just, on the post that we publish at 7 p.m. on our Patreon page, you comment on that. So that'll be 7 p.m. on the 24th of February. You comment on that and say if you would like 1 skein or 2 skeins.
Yeah, and the book for this month was The Murder at the Vicarage.
Cool. That's a good one. That's Geraldine McEwen
Yeah.
and the I Claudius fella who does the voice,
Yeah.
Derek Jacobi.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I watched it recently. It's a really good one.
It's really cool. I shall be back on Tuesday with my next DPN sock tutorial. Kay will be teaching, I'll be doing the knitting. So we'll see you on Tuesday for Turning the Heel, more DPN fun. Kay will also be back soon. I'm not sure exactly when, but you're about to do a 3-part review, aren't you, on some new yarn
Oh,
you've got?
yes, and I've got it here, actually.
Yes, because you're going to start knitting with it. So we thought it would be the perfect opportunity, as Kay's never knit with it before, to do a review into this absolutely gorgeous yarn. So she'll be doing a off-the-shelf review, which will be out in the next couple of weeks.
I got some Brooklyn Tweed Loft. I've been curious about this for ages and ages and ages. So I thought I'm going to get a couple of skeins. And it's as light as a feather. I'm probably talking to everybody who already knows this. And obviously Loft must be where it comes from. But just feel that. I mean, these are just 50-gram skeins. But you get 275 yards fingering weight. And I got Thistle and Postcard. I just thought they look gorgeous together. And I'm going to be knitting, I think, a design out of these, which is exciting. So, yeah. Brilliant.
Cool. So, that's it. That's the end of episode 94. That's the end of... Oh, there's something we haven't done. We'll have to do it next episode.
What?
We need to do the bucket list.
Oh, we've not done the bucket list.
We just haven't had time.
We've run out of time.
The show's been too jam-packed.
We've run out of time.
So, next episode, we will ram in somewhere a quick chat about the bucket list, and we will finalise the activity that we're doing this year.
Yeah.
But goodbye to all of this. All
I know. We could just sit here and have lunch, couldn't we? Really.
As we welcome back in the new adventures of the Bakery Bears. So we will see you next time for episode 1 of that, and so much more as well. So thank you so much for watching.
Thanks, everybody. Have a lovely day.
Yes, and we will see you soon.
See you next time.
See you soon for more.
Who's it sitting and knitting? It's Dan and Kay, the Bakery Bears. Enthusiasm's not quitting for Dan and Kay, the Bakery Bears. They'll take you to fabulous places of which their favorites they'll share. You better buy a pattern and knit yourself a Bakery Bear. You'll find yourself in a castle while watching the Bakery Bears. It never feels like a hassle to sit and watch the Bakery Bears. What's on your shelf or what's in your oven, or maybe a shawl you'll want to wear. So sit yourself right down and watch Dan and Kay,